repeatedly that he could have gotten the hostages out without giving anything in exchange. What do you say to that? What do you say to President Trump now, former president?
Why didn't he do it when he was president?
Now, he also took a shot at the Trump administration when he said, why didn't Trump do it? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's because none of these hostages were taken.
I think Paul Whelan was taken, but Evan Gershkovich.
The Fox propaganda network is openly struggling to cope with the fact that President Biden succeeded yet again where Donald Trump failed by arranging the release of multiple American prisoners that were held in Russia. And in one awkward moment, a Fox News host tries to go after President Biden for comparing himself to Donald Trump and then has to be hit with a brutal fact check from a fellow Fox News host who is an open Trump supporter and former Trump press secretary. Glorious stuff. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. We're going to start with this one here from the Fox Propaganda Network. It's always fun to watch them, step on rakes and face plant in their desperate quest to, bend over backwards to give Donald Trump credit for everything good that has ever happened in the history of civilization and to avoid giving President Biden credit for anything that is done under his administration. As we've talked about, President Biden has arranged for the release of multiple prisoners who were kept unlawfully and unethically by Russia. And at least one of them in this particular swap was imprisoned when Donald Trump was president back in 2018. And so for 2 years, Trump failed to secure his release and Joe Biden got it done. And in this clip right here, Ari Fleischer of the Fox Propaganda Network apparently forgot about that and got hit with a pretty brutal fact check.
So this is just Biden. And one of the reasons I think he's not running is because of what we just saw there today. Now, he also took a shot at the Trump administration when he said, why didn't Trump do it? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's because none of these hostages were taken.
I think Paul Whelan was taken, but Evan Gershkovich.
The Wall Street Journal reporter was not, and Vladimir was not.
Yes. So
perhaps one may have been. But the one that we've all focused on, of course, mostly focused on in the Wall Street Journal was taken not under Donald Trump.
So such cope, folks. I mean, that's so embarrassing. This is really the reason that Joe Biden isn't running for re-election. Joe Biden's not running for re-election because he successfully arranged for the release of prisoners, at least one of which was held while Trump was president. Number one. And number two, Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, Donald Trump also bragged that he would be able to secure his release and that President Biden would never be able to succeed. So there again, Biden succeeded where Trump failed. So then when Ari Fleischer is hit with the fact check, you can see him slack-jawed. The really important one, the one that we're focused on, Evan Gershkovich, that didn't happen when Trump was president. Okay, number one, none of these hostages are more important than the other. They're all prisoners. They're all hostages. It's good that they're all returned to American soil by President Biden and the Biden-Harris administration. But that just goes to show, folks, number one, how weak these Fox propagandists are when it comes to the facts. And number two, how desperate they are to grade Trump on a curve. Because what he should have said was, you know what? Damn, fair enough. You're right. That was one failure of the Trump administration where the Biden administration succeeded. That's it. You don't even have to be a Biden supporter. You can just acknowledge the fact, and it is a fact, and facts don't care about your feelings, that there are some areas in this world that the Biden-Harris administration succeeded where the Trump-Pence administration failed. It's okay. You don't have to change your party registration. You don't have to quit you might be violating Fox News policy if you acknowledge the success of the Biden administration. I don't know, but that's so a bad faith. It just goes to show how bad faith that very stupid news network really is. Now, on the subject of the hostages, Donald Trump, convicted felon, adjudicated fraudster, adjudicated rapist, and the Republican nominee for president of the United States did not celebrate the return of the prisoners, the return of the hostages, certainly didn't congratulate the Biden administration. Instead, he hates this country so much and hates his enemies so much more than to whatever extent he loves this country that he complained about it on Truth Social. So when are we going to get the details of the prisoner swap with Russia? How many people do we get versus them? Are we paying them cash? Are they giving us cash? Please withdraw that question because I'm sure the answer is no. Are we releasing murderers, killers, or thugs? Just curious because we never make good deals at anything, but especially hostage swaps. Our negotiators are an embarrassment to us. I got back many hostages and gave the opposing country nothing and never any cash. To do so is bad precedent for the future. That's the way it should be, or this situation will get worse and worse. They're extorting the United States of America. They're calling the trade complex. That's so nobody can figure out how bad it is. This goes to show truly how much he hates his country. I do want to play the Midas touch put this together, just kind of a juxtaposition of Trump's boisterous, claims and President Biden's quiet competence and successful delivery.
Evan Gershkovich, the reporter from the Wall Street Journal who is being held by Russia, will be released almost immediately after the election, but definitely before I assume office. He will be home. He will be safe. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, will do that for me, and I don't believe he'll do it for anyone else.
Today, we're bringing home Paul, Evan, Alsu, Vladimir. 3 American citizens and 1 American green card holder. All 4 have been imprisoned unjustly in Russia. Their brutal ordeal is over, and they're free. Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey, and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their family.
Biden got it done. Trump ran his mouth. And again, folks, there's so many things we could compare. Trump swore that he would repeal and replace Obamacare. I would replace it with something new. He failed to do so. President Biden has expanded the ACA. It could be infrastructure. Again, Donald Trump promised for years that he would deliver sweeping infrastructure revitalization in this country. He failed for 4 years. Biden got it done in less than 1. And again, this is yet another apples to apples comparison where multiple hostages, and at least one of them was imprisoned on Donald Trump's watch in Russia. And Trump had 2 years to get him released. Joe Biden got it done where Trump failed. Apples to apples, Biden is just objectively, executively, and legislatively more accomplished than Donald Trump. And it's so interesting to me that we're getting, even now, when President Biden is a lame duck president, he's not running for re-election. He has 6 months left in his term. He has a hostile Supreme Court that he has to deal with, a hostile House of Representatives. He's still able to meaningfully succeed in crucial areas where Donald Trump has failed. I've got some more clips I want to show you before we wrap up, but a couple of other things. So Newsweek put this together. Joe Biden's record on freeing American hostages compared to Donald Trump's. President Biden announced that his administration secured the release of 3 Americans and 1 U.S. resident as part of a prisoner swap with Russia. According to the White House, Biden has now secured the release of more than 70 Americans and various hostage releases across the globe. I will not stop working until every American wrongfully detained or held hostage around the world is reunited with their family. My administration has now brought home over 70 such Americans, many of whom were in captivity since before I took office, Biden wrote in a statement on Thursday. Meanwhile, Trump said he secured the release of 58 hostages while serving as president. The Trump White House Online Archive wrote that Trump freed 56 hostages from more than 24 countries. So looks like Biden's record is better on that respect as well. Now, a couple of clips I want to play here came from the subsequent national defense, national security press briefing in the aftermath of the prisoner exchange by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. And I want to play a couple of these clips because Jake Sullivan, number one, makes clear that President Biden and Vice President Harris played critical roles in arranging for these situations, and without them, this wouldn't have occurred. And then he addresses comments made by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump themselves.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake. Whose idea was it to try to go big and bring everyone home at once instead of going for a simpler one-for-one type deal and walk?
That's a great question, which I don't feel entirely comfortable answering because this was an organic process involving a lot of people across our government. But what I will say is this. The president sat us down on a regular basis over the course of the detentions of Paul, Evan, and Alsu, and really pushed us to think about what configuration would actually work to make this happen. And it was through an iterative process of back and forth with various of the allies I mentioned, with engagements with our Russian counterparts, where we were making proposals, getting responses, that this all came together. And so I would say that if you had not had Joe Biden sitting in the Oval Office, I don't think this would have happened. But as I said in my remarks, there were...
There you go. That's awesome. And again, another demonstration of President Biden's superior, objectively superior competence compared to that of Donald Trump. So in this clip here, it's funny. J.D. Vance is asked to address remarks by Donald Trump, basically where, about Donald Trump, about him being deserving of the credit.
My second question, today is clearly a day of celebration, but already there is some criticism, including from the Republican vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, who moments ago said, I think what this demonstrates, I think that really what this shows is that a lot of bad guys across the world are worried that Donald Trump is coming back into office. Your response to those comments?
I don't follow. Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. But again, folks, we've seen this. We've even seen this with respect to the economy. How many times have MAGA Republicans and Trump himself and Fox propagandists tried to give Donald Trump credit for President Biden's economy? I mean, it's just what they do. They're such losers in this respect. One more thing. This was this was Jake Sullivan addressing actual comments made by Donald Trump.
Back in May, former President Trump made the comment that Russia would release Evan Gershkovich for him after the upcoming election, quote, but not for anyone else. Did that comment complicate negotiations at all? And do you have a response to Trump's comment now?
Look, I'm just happy these guys are out and home, and I won't wade into the comments of the former president. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell that Jake Sullivan's fed up there. But folks, this is again what we're dealing with. I mean, again, the fact of the matter is, this is yet another success of the Biden administration, objectively superior to the Trump administration. And this is something that the vice president can also lay claim to. Reports are that she played a crucial role in the negotiations of the prisoner swap as well. So she can lay claim to this. And she can also use this as an apples to apples comparison between her and Donald Trump, especially should Trump ever find the courage to confront her on the debate stage. In the meantime, this is something that we should continue to discuss as the election rapidly approaches, and yet another demonstration of quiet competence. And as far as the Fox propaganda network is concerned, getting all the way back to the very beginning clip, they should be just humiliated. They really should be mocked and belittled over how petty and pathetic and partisan they really are, while claiming to be none of these things. And we should continue to celebrate the successes of the Biden-Harris administration. Let me know what you think in the comments.